Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how we make our ties. So the first thing that we did was we got an old tie and we took it apart. So you can see this here, we took all the seams out. We took the seams out. A tie comes in three pieces. You have this piece here, which is the front piece that you'll see. You have this little triangle piece right here. And then you have the tail piece that ties under and will lay flat behind the front part of the tie. So we took all the seams out so we could have a template. Now our ties are a little bit longer than average ties, so we actually had to make our own template, which is what we're doing right here. You can find free tie patterns on the internet. Simplicity has a great tie pattern that you can use. So there's really no wrong way to get your template. You can also, there are websites out there to show you how to do math to make it the length you want. I just prefer using a pattern. So what I've done is I've taken this piece of space fabric here. It's a little bit longer than a yard. A yard is from here all the way over to here. So it's about 37 inches long. And that's because our tie is, again, a little bit longer than average. We folded our fabric into thirds because we make a lot of ties at one time. So what we've done now is we place our template on top of the fabric that we want to cut, and then we're going to cut it out. So once we have all our pieces cut out, we take our template so we can put it back in a safe place for later. And now we have the bare bones of our tie. So the next step is we'll repeat that process with a lining fabric, which we've already cut out. And we like to do our linings in white because it's not going to show. So we want to make sure everything matches up. And these are all the right sizes. And the next step will be to go to the sewing machine. So now that we have our pieces cut out, you remember that we cut three, so we're going to have three separate pieces. So when we go to put the tie together, we want to make sure that we keep the angles matching. On this pattern, it's a little less important than it would be on something that is a unidirectional pattern. These could really go either way, but we want everything to line up. This is not the traditional way to put a tie together. Because we use patterns, we don't look at the diagonal, which is the traditional way that ties are made. If you make your ties on the diagonal, they will lie more flat and they will make better looking knots. But because we do sort of novelty sort of ties, we're not really concerned about that right now. So probably the most difficult part of putting a tie together is getting the angles right. So we use our serger because we try and use our serger for as much as we can. So the trick is that you take your one of your pieces, this is the tail piece, and we take the piece that goes in the middle. Now when we put these together, we're going to put them right sides together like this. And we want to make sure that there's some overlap. You see here, we've got a little bit of the triangle on top, and on the back side, we have a little bit of the triangle that's overlapping. When we sew these at an angle, we're going to cut those pieces off. And you can do this with a regular sewing machine as well. The reason to put those at an angle instead of lining them up is that when we unfold it, it comes closer to a straight line, which is what you're trying to achieve. So we'll do the same thing on the other piece. And again, right sides together. We want both of the pieces that are long to be showing the same type. So in this instance, they both are showing us the wrong side of the fabric. This will match up. Again, we want to make sure there's some overlap on both sides. So we have a little bit of overlap here and a little bit of overlap here. So now we have the first part of our tie. It looks kind of like a church stole. And when we straighten it out, you can see that it's a straight line, which is what we want. That's going to be the easiest way to put the tie together. You can do it without it matching, but it will make the middle of the tie a little bit thinner than you may want. So we're going to do the same thing for our lining. So now you see we've got the lining and we have our outside piece that are going to be all put together. Now for us, we have another step, and this is our tie ends. So this is for our branding purposes. This is completely optional for y'all if you're not doing anything like this, but we have cut out pieces that match the shape of the large tie end and the small tie end. So now we're going to put the tie together. So what we do is we take the piece we want to be the outside, which is the one with the galaxy print on it, and then we take our lining piece and we put the lining behind the print. So these are basically wrong sides together. The lining is a solid color, so it doesn't really have a wrong side, but we want the galaxy print to be on top when we put this together. Now, this is because we are using the tie pieces on the ends. If we were not using the tie pieces on the ends, you could put the wrong sides together, and then we'll turn them right side out. I'll show you what I mean. So we take our tie lining pieces at the end, and we put those right sides together. And what we do is we follow along the edges of our 90 degrees. And make sure all the edges are caught, and they are. And we're going to do the same thing on the small end of the tie. I like to run the two pieces together all the way along the length to make sure everything matches up. Again, the lining will be on the underside because we have these edge pieces. You can, of course, use pins or clamps. I am usually working on things quickly, so I don't use pins. So now we have both ends that have these little triangle pieces. We're going to flip it right side out. If you were doing this without the end pieces, you would put the lining and the top fabric wrong sides together and stitch just along the edges, just like this. So just along the triangle bits. Again, we're usually doing these in a hurry, but you can, at this stage, take an iron to flatten out your seams. They'll make it nice and crisp. So what we're looking at now is this is the large end of the tie. We have our lining and our tie end on the inside. And now what we'll do is take the edges of the tie and fold them together. So we want to bring right sides together of the print like this. Again, you can use an iron, you can use pins. What we're trying to achieve is the middle of the point, is the middle of the triangle that we folded. The next thing we're going to do is iron along the long edge of the tie. This will encompass all of the layers of fabric that we've got. Now this is why it's important to try and get those angles to match up, because as we're folding here, you can see that there is a little variation in the widths. So we actually did a good job on this one because there's not too much of a shortening. If you look underside here, you'll see that this is not quite a straight line here. So we want to make sure when we're putting it together that this is going to be included. And we'll check again on this edge to make sure everything lines up the way we want it to. At this stage, I like to look at the small point because this is our end goal of how we want it to line up. And again, you can see this doesn't line up completely perfectly. That's okay because it's supposed to be thinner. So we can actually run that a little bit thin and it'll be okay. Again, we want to make sure we're catching the print piece because that's going to be on the outside. Now we have our long side of the tie. The next step we're going to do is turn it inside out, or right side out rather. I'm a fan of the bodkin method, so you can use a chopstick for this as well. It's super secret turning that nobody told me about. And what you do is you open up your tube, or your tie in this case, and you want to separate it out so you can see the two pieces, and then we're going to take our bodkin and we're going to put it inside this little fold, and then we're going to pull the tube directly over the fold. So you want to have a good 2 or 3 inches on the edge before you start so you don't lose it. And all we're doing is pulling it over this way. And if what I'm saying doesn't make sense, there are, again, tutorials online to show how to do this. This is the fastest way to completely turn anything, a tube, a tie, bow ties, lanyards. We use this for everything. You can see my bodkin is kind of small. I still have a lot of material left for the tie. So you can pull the folds down like so and keep going. And this is real time of turning the tie. It's not sped up at all. So that has taken me about a minute to completely turn a 58-inch long tie. Then we pull the tip out. And make sure to get the bodkin out of there. And we are almost done. So the next thing that I do is check and make sure that I haven't missed any of the spots. You see we've got a little bit of the tail from the serger. That's okay. That actually got cut, so it comes right off. So the seam looks good. It looks like we've caught all the fabric. So the next thing we'll do is iron it, and then we'll be done. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to iron our tie. So what we do is make sure that everything lines up with the triangle at the top, because that's the part that people are going to see. So that's sort of our anchor point there. And we'll flip it over, make sure that we like the shape that it is. That looks good. And we're going to turn it back over, and we are ironing the seam in the center of the tie. Again, this is not the way that traditional ties are made. This is our quick and easy way that we can still use all those awesome geeky prints and be able to make lots of ties for you guys. I'm going to flip it over and make sure that we didn't iron any creases into it. And it looks good. And that's it. That's how you make a tie. At least that's how we do it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know if you have any questions and check out the links below.